Hello there folks, my name is Spooks and welcome back to another episode of Box Office Chat. This is where I break down the top 5 domestic box office results, see where each movie landed, and see how well each movie did, so let's get started. Number 5 was Arthur the King, making $4.2 million this weekend, adding to a domestic total of $14 million, and that total pretty much stays the same worldwide. It was released internationally, but it didn't receive a significant bump from the international market. So it's not like the movie didn't hold well this weekend. It only dropped around 44%, which is very solid, and it's just $5 million away from surpassing its initial production budget, both domestically and worldwide, which is good, and hopefully once it releases in more international countries, that international bump will get much bigger to hopefully get this movie across the doubling point at the very least worldwide, because right now things are still looking a bit iffy for this movie. Yes, the movie's not doing horribly by any means, especially considering the budget. Again, it's going to surpass the initial budget very soon, but yeah, it still needs to double that, and it's not looking like it's going to reach that point anytime soon. I just don't think there was just a lot of interest in this movie, unfortunately, despite the strong word of mouth from those who did see it, and it showed. It held well this weekend, but it's not really spreading like wildfire. The word's not really getting out there. People just don't really, not enough people want to see this movie, pretty much is what I'm saying. So yeah, while it's not doing horrible by any means, it's not doing great. It could be doing a lot better than what it is doing right now. Number 4 was Immaculate, opening with $5.3 million this weekend domestically and $6 million worldwide. This is the third biggest opening for a horror film this year. It sits behind both Imaginary and Night Swim. So this movie pretty much met my expectations for how it was going to do this weekend. It was able to shake up the top 5, but not by much. Not that it really needed to do, since the movie only costed $9 million to make, and it's certainly going to surpass that milestone domestically and worldwide very soon, and I think it's safe to say that it'll definitely get to the doubling point eventually. It's probably going to be quite the journey to get there, but I do think this movie will get to that point for sure. This is definitely another small horror hit, another case in the fact that these movies do not need to cost that much to make in order to become successful. This is another example of that. This is also Neon's biggest opening ever. It topped Ferrari from last Christmas, which is great to see. And considering how long it took this movie to get funded and made for, I remember reading the history behind the film, how Sydney Sweeney auditioned for this movie about 10 years ago, and she really rallied to get this movie to get made, and the fact that it was able to crack the top 5 and score a big milestone for the studio is very commendable, and as well as a pretty solid opening for itself, again, considering its cheap budget. So yeah, despite the fact that this isn't breaking new ground by any means, this is a pretty solid opening, all things considered. I do think people should really take note of this, and I hope it continues to grow for the coming weeks. Even though the word of mouth isn't great, it did get a C on Cinema Score, which is definitely concerning, and the fact that there is another horror movie, surprisingly also about nuns, in a couple weeks with The First Omen, so it's got to face off some competition pretty soon. But yeah, I'd still consider this a pretty solid opening for the film, and I am curious, to say the least, about where it heads down the road. Number 3 was Kung Fu Panda 4, making $16 million this weekend, adding to a domestic total of $132 million and a worldwide total of $267 million. So despite falling from first to third, which I was surprised to see, the film is still doing relatively well. It only fell 45%, which is about on par where it was last weekend. Again, these family movies really know how to maintain its core audience, and because of that, the film is about to surpass a couple more milestones. It's obviously surpassed $130 million domestically, $200 million worldwide, especially given the fact that it just released in China, so obviously those numbers were going to boost up from that as well, and it's looking like it's definitely going to surpass the $150 million milestone domestically very soon, and the $300 million milestone worldwide very soon, and it's still got plenty of time to grow and plenty more time to make some waves at the box office, because as I've said many times before, this is the only fully animated movie that's going to be in theaters until Garfield on Memorial Day weekend. So that means this movie has 2 months pretty much all to itself. Yeah, you could say there's some other family movies that could shake things up and hurt this movie, but the fact of the matter is this movie is still doing very well with families. Spring break has expanded, more kids are out of school, which gives them more time to go check out the Dragon Warrior on another Dragon Warrior adventure, and this movie's still reaping the rewards. Again, it only costed 85 million. This is well past the doubling point of that. It's definitely going to continue to be making some waves, making some headlines at the box office. Yeah, not much more else to say except Kung Fu Panda 4, despite falling from first to third, is still doing pretty well. Number 2 was, for the third week in a row, Dune Part 2, making 17 million this weekend, adding to a domestic total of 233 million and a worldwide total of $574 million. So Dune was able to get the upper hand over Kung Fu Panda 4 by just $1 million, folks, which is just insane to think about. Dune has been trailing behind Kung Fu Panda 4, but now Kung Fu Panda 4 is trailing behind Dune, which absolutely insane to see just the legs this thing has. And because of that, this movie's still continuing to break some box office milestones. It recently surpassed $230 million milestone domestically, the $500 million milestone worldwide. It remains the biggest movie of the year, both domestically and worldwide. And some more milestones to look out for. Definitely going to surpass 250 million domestically and 600 million worldwide. Once again, very, very soon. This is the movie of the moment. This is the movie everybody is going to see. Hell, it wouldn't surprise me to see this movie surpass 300 million domestically, as despite this weekend bringing a pretty big movie, April is looking to put it lightly, less competitive than March. So there's a chance this movie could continue to leg out and bring in the audiences enough to get it past the $300 million milestone, which I'm all for. The movie's great and definitely deserves it. Not much more else to say here, except Dune Part 2 is really still bringing in the audiences, bringing in the moolah, still the big movie of the year. It's going to be interesting to see which movie will be the first one that can surpass it. I think we're going to see a lot of movies come close, but it's going to be interesting to see which one really surpasses this movie to become the new biggest film of the year. But as it is right now, that title still belongs to Dune Part 2. And finally, let's end the video off with the number 1 movie of the weekend, which was Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, opening with $45 million this weekend domestically and $61 million worldwide. This is the third biggest opening of the year, topping Bob Marley, One Love, and Mean Girls, but still sits behind Kung Fu Panda 4 and Dune Part 2. It is also the second biggest opening in the Ghostbusters franchise, topping Ghostbusters Afterlife, Ghostbusters 2, and the original Ghostbusters, but still sits behind the 2016 Ghostbusters film. It's honestly pretty spectacular that the most recent Ghostbusters films have all remain in the same mid $40 million range in terms of their openings. Like, none of them have propelled super past this milestone. None of them have fallen well below this milestone. They've all remained consistent, which I find to be very interesting. It shows that they've been able to maintain their core, hardcore Ghostbusters fan base throughout these past couple years. And with this opening a little bit over the first film's 44 million opening back in 2021 is very solid to see. There were some expectations, some people saying this movie could go a bit under. The last one didn't really resonate a lot with people. People liked it, but they weren't really like wow, over the moon over it. But the fact that it was able to open pretty much a little bit over or about on par with it is definitely a good sign for, this can continue as a franchise. And because the film had $100 million budget, this is also very solid. It's definitely going to surpass that initial production budget worldwide very soon, and it wouldn't surprise me if it gets over that milestone domestically. Once again, spring break. This is definitely a much more family oriented movie, as was the last one, and which is why I think this movie not only was able to bring Kung Fu Panda down to third, but also had a much bigger opening than a lot of people expected. It appealed more to families than I think a lot of people were expecting it to, and that's going to be interesting to see if it can continue to hold very well throughout the coming weeks, because not only is it facing off very, very big competition this coming weekend, more on that later, but also the people who saw it didn't like it as much as the previous installment. While the original Ghostbusters came out before Cinema Score was created, Ghostbusters 2 and Ghostbusters Afterlife both got A- cinema scores. This got a B+ cinema score, which is on par with the 2016 Ghostbusters movie, which is definitely concerning to say the least. It's not looking like a lot of people enjoyed this as much as the last one, or really enjoying this one altogether. It doesn't seem like people weren't as enthusiastic or as in awe as they were at the last one. So that's definitely going to be something to keep our eyes out on, how this movie does in the coming weeks. Hopefully, given that it's geared towards a family or friendlier audience, maybe it can sustain this. Maybe it can be still a surprise. Well, maybe not a surprise, but like at least a sleeper hit, maybe continue these strong family holds like we saw with Kung Fu Panda 4. But yeah, this is very concerning. Hopefully it turns this ship around. Hopefully it can continue to build this momentum it has with its opening, because things ain't looking too great for it after this. Again, stiff competition and not very solid word of mouth. Definitely some concerns there. But as far as its opening goes, yeah, this is a pretty good opening. Once again, opening over the predecessor and making a good amount of its budget back. That's definitely what most films want to do on their opening, and this film was able to do that. So yeah, definitely some concerns going into its longevity, but as far as its opening, not bad. And those were your top 5 domestic box office results for this weekend, but we're not quite done yet, as we've got another week ahead of us and new movies hitting theaters. And this weekend we have one new major wide release, that film being Godzilla and Kong: The New Empire. Without a doubt, both figuratively and literally, the biggest movie of the moment right now. Godzilla vs. Kong, when it came out, was pretty much the movie that brought people back to theaters. Yeah, we had a couple of other movies that slowly but surely brought audiences to the theater, Croods 2, Tenet, Raya and the Last Dragon, but that was the first one that really made people go, yeah, we have to see this on the big screen. And this is looking like it's going to continue bringing people to the movie theaters, as this one's looking to be even more ridiculous, more stupid, more nonsensical, and a ton of fun to watch. The marketing for this movie has been spectacular. I've been seeing lots of promos and advertising for it. The buzz is really strong. People really want to see Godzilla and King Kong team up to fight another giant monkey. And, this is definitely building off the hype that Godzilla Minus One had. It broke box office records. It won an Academy Award recently. A lot of things are working in this film's favor. And even in terms of longevity, April is looking pretty slow. I don't want to say barren, because I do believe there are movies that will make some big waves at the box office, but it's not going to be as big as March. So Godzilla and Kong is definitely going to make a lot of moolah this weekend and for the rest of the month, pretty much. I don't think a lot of the movies coming out next month are going to stand a chance, or going to make like half of what this movie's going to make. I don't think it's going to be as big as Dune. I just think the hype for that movie was bigger, but yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if this came close to Dune's opening. So yeah, I'm expecting very solid things for this movie. I think we're going to see a pretty good opening here, but we'll see how well this movie truly does, as well as the rest of the movies that land in the top 5 on the next Box Office Chat. And that's going to do it for this week's episode of Box Office Chat. What did you all think of the results? Were you satisfied, unsatisfied? Comment down below and let me know. If you like this video, hit the like button. If you like this channel, hit the subscribe button. Follow me on all the social media links right there. And until next time, everyone, stay sharp.